my name is Carrie Gelson, and the title of my performance is "The Only Thing We Have to Fear is Fear Itself, the Debate Over Assistance During the Great Depression."
So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Oh yes, fear. And what a true statement, President Roosevelt. Only a few years ago, life was great. During the Roaring '20s, there was no fear of where your next meal might come from. But everything changed after the stock market crashed in '29. Businesses failed and unemployment grew. Now the fears are so many in these times of uncertainty. The hope of many is that you'll try harder than President Hoover to make the situation go away. But Hoover believed that individuals and private organizations should help each other and not the federal government. Now, the fears are so overwhelming in these times of uncertainty. The hope of many is that you will try harder than President Hoover to make this go away. But 4 years later, things are not good. I wonder, have you ever experienced the fears of my family? Not having enough food to eat. The worry I see in my mother's eyes as she leaves to sell Christmas cards from door to door, or going to school in worn-out shoes that I've already repaired, with the sole cut out from an empty shredded wheat box. President Roosevelt, have you ever watched your mother give up her meal to see that you get only half the portion of fried potatoes and greens? Do you know what it feels like to pretend you're not hungry when there's nothing you would like more than a nice warm meal to call your own? Have you ever lived in a house that is so cold at night and the only source of warmth is another's body beside you? My baby brother died from suffocation as my mother tried to keep him warm. And I watched my father come home with fear in his eyes because he has to break the news to the family that he's lost his job at Republic Steel and can no longer pay the rent. Will I be homeless tomorrow? The only way to get through these hard times is to keep the hope that when I wake up the next morning, things might be better. But I look outside my own door, and I see it's not just my family, it's my friends, my neighbors, my relatives who are suffering with me. I wonder, President Roosevelt, what will you do? I wonder. The debate begins. Extra, read all about it. President Roosevelt passes 15 major bills through Congress in his first 100 days. Extra. Thank you, Mr. Stone. Have a nice day. I really hope this new deal of President Roosevelt's will work. He has accomplished so much in his first 100 days. I'm sure future presidents will be judged against his actions. Immediately following his inauguration, he called Congress into a special session and kept them there for 3 whole months. Many of the bills passed greatly increased the power of the federal government. There was the TVA and the WPA, and the CCC too. In fact, 15 of them were passed through Congress. Will Rogers even stated, Congress doesn't pass legislation anymore, they just wave at the bills as they go by. You know, my father told me these were created so that men would have a source of income, and they wouldn't have to feel like they were accepting charity. My father just got a job digging ditches with the FERA. He was very fortunate to get a job through one of Roosevelt's programs, and now things aren't looking as fearful as they once were before. Things have been so bleak recently, but at least I have my faith to pull me through. My faith in the Lord and in individuals such as Mr. B. Verdot. My family received a most generous gift from him this Christmas season. He put an ad in the Canton Repository which partially read, "In consideration of the white-collar man, suppose if I were confronted with an economic situation where the bread of tomorrow is the problem of today. There is a question in my mind if I would accept charity directly offered by welfare organizations. I know there are hundreds of men and families out there who, when faced with economic problems, think, feel, and act the same way. Please write to Mr. B. Verdot, General Delivery, Canton, Ohio. In writing, please familiarize me with their circumstances, and financial aid will be promptly sent." I immediately began writing to him. "Dear Sir, when we went to borrow the paper from the neighbors this morning, I read your article. I am a girl of 14. I am writing this because I need clothing, and sometimes we run out of food. Father does not want to ask for charity, but if you should send us $10, I would buy clothing and the Christmas meal for my family. I thank you, Helen Paul." Only a few days later, My family received $5, and I was able to buy a new pair of shoes and the Christmas meal for my family. This one individual was able to do much more for my family than President Roosevelt and his New Deal. My fellow citizens, if you elect me, Huey Long, as your next president, I will do much in return for you. To each family, I will grant a house, a car, a radio, and $2,000 income per year. Mr. Roosevelt, my opponent, and his New Deal have not done enough for the poor. He has not gone far enough with his alphabet agencies to change the blood of you who suffer. Being a senator from Louisiana, I know the suffering you have endured. I say, share the wealth. Now, you may not know this, but President Roosevelt considers me to be one of the two most dangerous men in America because of my popularity with you, the American people. In fact, his latest campaign strategies have been to steal my ideas and make them part of his second New Deal. This Social Security bill mirrors my proposal for old age pensions, and the WPA certainly looks like the public works program I started down in Louisiana. My fellow Americans, let me remind you, if elected, my voice will be the same as it has been. Patronage will not change it, fear will not change it, persecution cannot change it. It cannot be changed while the American people still suffer. I will not change. To every man, a king. President Roosevelt, you have let your re-election landslide victory go to your head. You and your New Deal plan, when are you going to learn? You just won't win. We Supreme Court justices have declared many of your New Deal programs, such as the NIRA and the AAA, unconstitutional. You're given too much power to the executive branch, which is already set aside for the legislature. I know you think we are old, conservative, inefficient. Well, you're wrong. And this new scheme of yours certainly looks like court packing to me, Mr. Roosevelt. You want Congress to give you the power to appoint us 6 new justices. For those already in court and over the age of 70, unbelievable. It is obvious you are targeting 6 out of the 9 justices because they challenge your domestic programs. I know you few will find the Wagner Act and Social Security Act unconstitutional. I'm sure it was quite a shock to find out not only the Chief Justice fought vigorously against your proposal, but also the Senate Democrats, the media, and the American people. I fear you have greatly emboldened the conservative opposition in this land. Mr. Granger, the landowner, told me I ain't allowed to plant more cotton on my acre of land. He says the government says I can. I heard down at the general store Mr. Granger's getting paid for me not to plant that cotton. How am I supposed to feed my family? I also found out I can't get this Social Security thing because we're domestic workers and farm workers. I'm thinking about signing up for the WPA like my brother went and done. He says they don't treat us differently because of the color of our skin. They build bridges and roads and even post offices and schoolhouses. At least that way, I'd be able to feed my family. Mr. Beaver, the man whom Helen rode, was also known as Sam Stone, and in the winter of 1933, he was able to help 150 suffering lives in Canton, Ohio. His actions remind us of many other individuals who did their part to help those in need during the Great Depression. Even the notorious Al Capone did his part by being the first person in Chicago to open a food kitchen, and this led to the efforts of many others. The suffering of the worldwide Great Depression lasted from late 1929 to the early 1940s, and many historians credit World War II for ending it. President Roosevelt proposed 2 New Deal plans, which would put the American people back to work, regulate big business, and create a social programs as a safety net that kept many from starvation, but at a high cost to our nation's debt. The helpfulness of the New Deal was contingent upon one's geographic location, occupation, and race. Even today, during our country's economic recession, the debate continues regarding individual versus governmental assistance to those in need. May our country's leaders learn from the failures of the past and create a foundation of success for our nation's future. Thank you.